Worth It changed my life, because I just came to college. I just became a Christian, like beginning of my like freshman semester, and I had heard about like giving. You know, my dad's like a pastor, and so like 10%, you got to give it every paycheck, which I never did. I lied. But even just hearing the idea of like, oh, because like Jesus like died, like what he did for us, like this is our response, and like even like having the question put in front of me of like, well then is it worth it? You know, is Jesus, like all these things that he's done, is it worth it to, you know, give? I'm a big saver. Like I just like hold on to money. But the one thing I budgeted for was coffee. Was like, and I told my parents, they're like, what's your budget or whatever? I was like, I have a budget of $30 a week for coffee. And they were like, $30 a week? And I was like, man, maybe I'm not as good with money as I think, or maybe these things have my heart instead of as much more than I think they do. And even wrestling with this idea of like all in, knowing that like the Lord sees that, and like to some extent does like the Lord need my dollar? No, but he wants my heart, you know? And like he like in that moment was like, I'm not, maybe not testing, but I genuinely felt like I got closer to the Lord by even thinking, no, like I like love my church, you know, I love this mission, and like it really did like affect how I viewed my money, if that makes sense. Where again, it's like, okay, if I really believe these things and I'm like embodying these things, like am I trying my best to embody these things, like why like should it hurt, like not hurt, but should it move me a little bit more to want to give, you know, a little bit, like to give more? Am I like just being comfortable for the sake of like being comfortable with this? In that moment really felt just like felt the tension of like who will I serve today, you know, in this moment, in this action. And I think like God like really does care about those moments, you know, as small as they are. It's like that's to some extent who we truly are, you know. We are like those decisions, and speaks to his just generosity, you know, of like how much he loves us, which then goes back to this, you know, even the beginning of it, of wrestling with Worth It and all that, of like he is just so kind and he is just so generous. And I you know, you can't, after looking at all the evidence, and even now of just like all the evidence and of lives transformed, and even that I've been able to witness, but even personal transformation in my life, it's like all of this just goes to show like he is worth it, you know. And like why wouldn't I be all in?